Hello, everyone. This is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I am your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about a host of different things. J.K. Rowling, it's always interesting when she's in the news because people hate her for ridiculous reasons, I believe, and she's a beloved children's author, but she's been canceled over having particularly normal views that men are men and women are women. But The Guardian put out a Person of the Year poll, and they were trying to gauge who was a Person of the Year, and apparently she was winning, running away with it, and they decided to take it down because you can't have a beloved children's author who says common sense things to be the Person of the Year, especially if you're a leaning left sort of paper. We're also going to be talking a little bit about the Ghislaine Maxwell case. Of course, she was convicted on 5 of the 6 counts. I don't believe we know yet how long she'll go away. People are talking about, oh, is anyone else going to go down with her? Is she going to take anyone else down? I'm not sure that's going to be the case. I know that the jury's looked into a little bit of her files or black books and stuff, but to my knowledge, what I'm reading, it seems like they're gonna lock that back up again. So there's a lot of stuff that people just don't want you to know. She's obviously been connected to a lot of high profile people. I shared a tweet someone put out. It was like, my condolences to the Clinton family since your friend is going away for such a long time. And of course, she was at their wedding, Chelsea Clinton's wedding. Epstein was at the White House a lot when Bill Clinton was president. I made this meme, shared this around because Masterclass has Bill Clinton. There's a Hillary one that I did too, but the how to be photographed with an Epstein sex slave and still speak at DNC conventions and other events, because that happened. But Epstein went a lot to the White House when he was president, and he's been to the island. There's a weird painting that they found among Epstein's possessions of Bill Clinton, like crossing his legs and pointing, kind of suggestively in the blue dress. I guess it's probably not the infamous blue dress. I'm not actually sure what the blue dress looks like, but we all know what the blue dress is. Actually, I don't know if everyone knows what the blue dress is, because I mentioned that in 2016. It seemed like a lot of people didn't. Enough people got the joke, but there's definitely younger people who didn't get the joke. But Monica Lewinsky had a blue dress, and her friend told her to keep it as evidence. So it had residue, and that's how they were able to prove her story was accurate as far as what some of the stuff that the former president was doing. So that blue dress made it into a painting with Bill Clinton. That I hope to God he did not actually pose for. But we don't know what all these people have done up in high positions of power. But there's a lot of pedos in the news that are going down. Even pedos who work for the news. At CNN, there's 2 producers, one who worked for Andrew Cuomo, one who worked for Jake Tapper. The one who worked for Cuomo was literally sex trafficking children. And the other one who worked for Jake Tapper was soliciting or trying to get inappropriate images of stuff of young girls. And so he's being charged, I believe, and he did formally resign. Jack Posobiec from Human Events, he keeps trolling Jake Tapper on Twitter, asking him to comment about that stuff. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, because CNN is getting on my nerves, and they've announced that they're really going to be talking about January 6th. They're going to be live streaming. So I'm going to do something special in retaliation to CNN. So we will talk about that in a little bit. And I also want to talk about Jeopardy. They have their highest scored woman now. Someone just set a new record. Big problem though is that it's a man. It's a man, so I'm not sure what the obsession is with men doing so awesome and then just letting them say that they're women, and then just letting women have their records continuously broken. Um, so it's not just in the realm of sports, it's also now on Jeopardy as well. So we're gonna talk about that story a little bit today as well. But before we jump into it, I do want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content that I have on the website, different articles. Make sure to follow me all around all my social media platforms. I'm on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, of course. Uh, of course, Facebook. I think I said the main big four, but there's also Twitter. Twitter is my only handle that's different. That one is at True Black Tea. So even if you like to watch on one platform or follow me on one platform, just make sure that you're following on different places as well, so it can grow the whole website, the whole channel, across the different platforms. So make sure that you are subscribing still to like YouTube, even though you might like to watch it on Facebook, for example. If you would like to support Black Tea News, you can go to blacktnews.com/donate and leave a gift. You can, whatever you can do. I appreciate so much everyone who's done that so far. We've been able to grow a lot. On TikTok, I'm at almost 85,000 followers on that app. Today I was at the car dealership with my dad, and he was talking to the salesperson. So he asked me a little bit about what I did, and I mentioned Black Tea News. He's like, "Oh, my daughters love Black Tea News." I'm like, "Really?" I was like, "The little teacup, right?" And they're like, "Yeah, I know what it is." So I'm like, "Oh, I'm getting out there." And so I told my family about that, and they were like, "Oh, that's really cool." So I'm glad that the word's getting out there. I appreciate people watching from all over the country. I see someone from South Carolina has checked in. I know it's probably a little warmer there than it is. It's not really bad. There's some snow on the ground right here in Michigan, but it's not bad. Our weather's been very back and forth. We didn't even have snow on Christmas. And then a lot of it came in. You can walk outside, you can go to sleep at night and everything's fine, nothing there. And then the next thing you know, you have to do automatic start. That's just the state we live in, just the area of the Midwest. The weather is pretty darn unpredictable. Also, check out different merchandise they have on the website, like the goat hoodie. We do have those in different colors, and also not also in a hoodie. But you can check that out. Also got the defeat Joe Biden, denounce white supremacy shirt with a list of his racist atrocities on the back, along with some other cool stuff. I'm not the victim you're looking for. And I also have books and so on. So, first things first, you guys know I like to start off with something humorous. And I don't know how funny this is, rather than maybe it's just sad, but it made me kind of chuckle. It's a meme. It's a meme. So you have the Waukesha massacre, mainstream media, eyes closed. Then you have the Ghislaine case, eyes closed. And then you get to Let's Go Brandon, and they are livid. So it is amazing the sort of things that the media will freak out about, particularly the Let's Go Brandon thing. They were so mad. If you were unaware of what's going on with the Let's Go Brandon thing, because you may be living in a cave during right before Christmas, Biden was doing like the call on the tracking Santa thing. And so he's being nice, doing a nice thing for kids. And then one of the fathers said, "Let's go, Brandon." And then Joe Biden said, "Let's go, Brandon. I agree." He's like, "I agree." And so I'm not sure if it's because his staff has kept him so sheltered, but it seems impossible that you could not know what that is. I don't know if he just wasn't cognizant and it just went right over his head. I don't know if he just played along because he didn't know what else to do. Or, or maybe it was one of those things when he didn't actually hear and he's just like, "Yep, sure, whatever." I don't know. I don't know what's up with him. I am concerned about him, just period. Like I said, I don't think he's like, his mind is lost, in my opinion, as like some other people are like, he's full on dementia right now, but he's obviously in a decline. And I think most people feel that way regardless. If they're even a little bit honest, I mean, if you just kind of watch him from like a couple years ago to today, of course there's a decline. He's a very, salted man, I guess you could say. He's up there in age. He's up there. So obviously he's not all there, but his wife was sitting right there and let it happen. I'm like, you gotta help your man, hun. You got to help your man. Some people said it was elderly. This is elder abuse in some regards. It's just sad. There have been other times I've seen videos of Joe Biden where it was just really hard to watch, and I've gone online and said, this is sad, and y'all need to do something. Y'all ain't a good wife. Y'all ain't good children. Y'all ain't good handlers. Whatever. This is really sad. But the media was upset. People doxed the dad. He claimed he didn't mean any disrespect. Of course, he meant some disrespect. But it's still harmless. You know, people are like, you should respect the office of the president. Though a lot of these people didn't respect the office of the president when it came to Bush, or when it came to, definitely not when it came to Trump. And saying, let's go, Brandon, is a lot more harmless than people saying, I thought about blowing up the White House. That's what, was that Madonna said that, like at the Women's March? There was Kathy Griffin holding the severed head of the president. So, I mean, people have done a lot more disgusting things to Trump. I talked about the other day how when Trump was running for office, there was naked statues of Trump. This wasn't 2020. This was like in 2016. And they had him in New York. I think they had him in California. And they were just like traveling places. And I'm like, what kind of sick person would do this? And what kind of sick person would take pictures? What kind of sick people would pose with it? What kind of sick people would be okay with this in the least bit? It's just really gross. And even if you don't like someone, what gives you the permission to act that crazy? You know, the let's go Brandon is a lot more harmless than that. Now, was he like respecting the office at the time? No, but there's a lot of people who feel like he deserves no respect anyway. I feel like Joe Biden is extraordinarily unworthy of that office, with a lot of things that he's done throughout his career, particularly Afghanistan as well. I think his response to the COVID, not just making bad decisions is one thing, but to get up and tell the American people, this isn't about freedom. It's not about your liberties. It's not about your, like, that's you're like, you're over the wrong country, bruh. You don't understand what your job is. So, but I probably, I don't know if I would have did it personally, but it was funny. It was funny, but the media's been upset about it. And CNN even went as far as to say the dad doing the Let's Go Brandon thing, or just, I guess, the Let's Go Brandon thing in general isn't about civil disobedience. It's about insurrection. And yes, they use that word. They use the word insurrection. Because they're so insane. So that brings me to this. So CNN announced that they are going to do coverage about January 6th, and they are going to do it live from, I guess, the Capitol. To talk about like the 1 year later. The 1 year later, as if, I don't know, as if we are in like, what I don't even, what is that in the image? That is as if our nation has been utterly just demolished because of it. They really play up what it was, what happened. It was bad. It was a riot. It was a riot for sure. I was in disbelief when I saw what was going on. I'm like, really? And I've done commentary about it, and I'm like, some of your people went and they got played when they went. But they really milked this thing a lot. It's clear from their ratings and how they just talk that they miss Trump in some regards. Like, they're scared. They don't want him to come back. They didn't like him for sure, but they knew he was good for ratings. So maybe that's another reason why they're, of course, milking this. And the people who's going to be doing it is Jake Tapper and Anderson Cooper. So you know what? Ben Shapiro pointed out that they didn't really, what kind of coverage did they have a year later for the baseball massacre? What kind of coverage did they have for like the damage of the BLM riots and stuff? That they're going to make some kind of big spectacle of it. So, not that this wasn't a big day, not that this wasn't a big thing that happened, but do you need a year later thing when you've been talking about it nonstop since it happened, to the point where if someone says, let's go Brandon, you'll say, this is about insurrection. No, someone trolling the president on a phone call. Prank phone calls are like as old as, I was going to say old as time, but obviously not as old as time because phones haven't been around that long. But a very, very long time people have been prank calling people. That's not insurrection. But they will tie whatever they can back to this day. So I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed with CNN. I'm annoyed with CNN for this. So I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. CNN has had some really interesting stories as of late involving sexual assault. So, you know what? We're going to highlight them. We're going to highlight such things on that date. So on January 6th, with Black Tea News, we will be talking about Andrew Cuomo and Chris Cuomo and their collaboration as they tried to maneuver around Andrew Cuomo's sexual assault victims, how they tried to cover for that, how he enabled them, and it was his brother, but he was definitely inappropriate, and of course, it's why he's fired, and now he's allegedly gearing up to sue CNN. So we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about the former Cuomo producer who was literally sex trafficking. We talked about a little bit on the show when that news broke. But we will also be talking about this producer who worked for Jake Tapper. And Project Veritas had some pretty crazy stuff about it. I'm going to play, I think this is the clip right here. Let me play a little bit of the undercover stuff that they had.
Coming on the heels of last week's arrest of CNN producer John Griffin on multiple counts of trying to elicit unlawful sexual activity with minors, the subject of our story is another CNN producer whom had an ongoing relationship with our source for over a decade.
My name is Janine Bonanni, and I'm currently a case manager for human trafficking victims as well as domestic violence and sexual assault.
That's his fiance's child.
He sent me a photo of his daughter. It was not pornographic.
And as you were getting these text messages, what was going through your mind?
I feel disgusting. Mm-hmm. I feel dirty. And I reply, it's your girl's kid, like your girlfriend's kid. Usually every time we text, it's always about him wanting to see me and his stepdaughter together. But I do have a recording of him on the phone.
After I'm done having my mouth on her, I'm going to walk up and put my crotch very close to her face. Slowly unzip my zipper and just guide her head a little closer. And I'm just going to have her kiss the head, and I'm going to put her hand around it so she can feel what that hard flesh feels like.
And that was just my way to, get him face to face so I can actually have proof of words coming out of his mouth. He sent me a text saying, I love that she is getting hot. I want to taste how wet she makes you.
And he's talking about who?
His stepdaughter, who's 14 years old. Even about my daughter, he's asked for things, and it has infuriated me.
Your daughter?
My daughter.
How old's your daughter?
15.
We're looking at a text message. Could you tell us what this means?
He said, so I'm not getting mother-daughter nudes for this help. And when he says this help, he sent me money. He thinks because you sent me money, you're going to get a nude photo of me and my daughter. Are you insane? I do not want this girl to be a victim. I'm not a journalist. I'm not a detective. People with power seem to get away with things. I just want this kid to be safe.
Yeah, that was some crazy stuff that Veritas has. So that's someone who used to work at other networks too. It wasn't just CNN, but he just left CNN now because of the crazy stuff that they were doing. So, and also I want to talk about Toobin. Toobin is their legal analyst on CNN, who during the pandemic and stuff, when a lot of people were doing remote stuff, he was pleasuring himself on a Zoom call, a work Zoom call, and is pleasuring himself. And I guess he didn't know it was on or something. So anyway, they suspended him temporarily But they brought him back. Because I guess they need his hot takes about the law. There's no one else that they could have hired who wouldn't, do something that gross, I guess. So we're gonna cover those things. And we're gonna talk about more, I guess, if we find them. So I want to expose CNN because, like I said, they're really, really gross and they're really, really weird, and they have been riding this insurrection train so much that they're willing to pin it on people who weren't there. Like using that language with the "Let's Go Brandon" dad and saying it's about insurrection. Like, no, it's not. He just doesn't like the president. And there's a lot of people who don't like the president. There's a lot of people who don't appreciate the job that he is doing as far as the economy, as far as COVID, as far as Afghanistan. Polling was abysmal with that. People don't like going to the pump and seeing their gas. Looks like at $3.39 is what I just got it for not too long ago. People are paying for it much more in other places. I saw a video of a girl crying because she put $15 in her car and it didn't even get her halfway or a quarter or more than 2/4 or whatever in the tank. She's just crying, and people in the comments are like, this is what happens when you vote the wrong kind of way. And people say Biden can't control the gas prices, and then you have Democrats who will make a graphic like gas went down 2 cents. Thank you, President Biden. It's like, is it his fault? Is it not his fault? Is it his fault or is it not his fault? So yeah, we're gonna have an interesting time. It's gonna be a lot of tea that day. Maybe it's a little petty, but I don't care. It's the news, and the CNN's definitely not talking about it. So we're gonna talk about it. We're going to talk about it. So we will have an interesting January 6th while they are just salivating over something that happened a year ago that they've been talking about repeatedly. And we're going to talk about something that's current with the network. So we'll have an interesting time. Speaking of gross, sick people, we know that Ghislaine Maxwell was found convicted, and she was convicted of 5 of her 6 counts of sex trafficking. She was, the lady friend of Epstein, who did not kill himself, by the way. And they've been in play with a lot of powerful people. I don't know if we'll ever know how deep it goes. We do know that they're very tied to the former president, Bill Clinton, that he visited the White House quite a bit, that Bill Clinton's been to his island. And I already talked about how he had the creepy blue dress painting and other stuff like that. It's it's gone a lot of places, but I don't know if we'll ever get all the smoking guns that we need to. A lot of the stuff they're going to resale, and some of it has to do with some of the stuff involves minors, or a lot of it involves minors. But obviously, I still think that they're still trying to protect a lot of people. When they were first going after her and Epstein, there were people across the aisle saying, I don't care who it takes down. But I got to say, I think overall, for a case that's so disturbing and so high profile, I think the media has been particularly mum about it in comparison to things like, January 6th. And talking about January 6th when it happened is one thing, but people are still hot for it on these left-wing networks today. And it's December. It's December. A lot of those people are arrested. And it seems like some of them are political prisoners, at least how it's been what I can see. And how harshly they're charging some of these people. Now, people who did illegal things and were violent, like those people should really get in trouble. But they really, really were going after a lot of people, spying on a lot of different people, investigating a lot of different people. Some people who weren't even there. Some people who just got permits. The January 6th committee, they're going after people's phone records of people who weren't even there. And then the phone companies are like, if you guys can't like stop us, we're just going to give your phone records over. It's really insane. It's really insane. But that's the country that we're just living in right now. That's the country we're living in right now. So I wanted to talk about J.K. Rowling. So the Guardian started doing a poll for like person of the year. And of course, Time Magazine had their person of the year, and Elon Musk got it, which I find that he is worthy of this year. Sometimes they're whack. Last year it was Biden and Kamala because I guess they couldn't bear to just give it to one of them. So they had to give it to them both. But they were pretty whack, and I think obviously Trump was a more would have been a better person of the year at that time. But Elon Musk, I think, is a good person this year, and he said some pretty based stuff recently. So he's a pretty interesting character. But anyway, J.K. Rowling was in the top spot for this online poll for The Guardian. And so when she was like running away with it, then the poll just was shut down. It just disappeared. So that's funny, but I think it's sad that papers like that can't be honest. And you got to be, I think you got to be brave enough to accept the results of your polls if you're going to post them. Of course, you can have situations where one right-wing account can share a poll like that, and then obviously they'll get the results that they want. So there's always that risk you run when you put out a poll, but you can't just shut it down when you don't. I guess you can, but you shouldn't just shut things down when you don't get the results that you want. But who knows if it was just like a right-wing troll operation. There's a lot of people who feel the same way that J.K. Rowling does. There's a lot of people who are like, hey, men are men and women are women. That's her great egregious crime. Just acknowledging that men are men and women are women. So recently she got back in the news because Scotland, I believe it was Scotland, started saying that if you're like a man and you rape a woman, but you identify as a woman, then you can, in your documents and stuff, you can just be referred to as a woman. And she obviously that's pretty out there. That's pretty out there that if you are in court and you are looking at a man who looks pretty hulkish, probably, and you know that they inserted their man thing into you violently, you have to look them in the eye and just pretend that that person is a woman. That's pretty out there. That's pretty out there. So J.K. Rowling, she spoke out against that, and she spoke up for other women who, you know, spoke about how women are women. And it's, I haven't seen her say anything that was like out there that was particularly transphobic. And just because you want to acknowledge that men are men and women are women doesn't make you, it doesn't make you a hateful person. If it's about how you identify, why do you need the whole entire world to bend to your worldview? Why do you need that if it's about how you personally identify? You need everyone else to affirm your worldview? Because that just can't happen. I know we're at a place where everyone sort of wants that to happen, but that's not where we are. But maybe this is a good sign, even though the Guardian got scared and took down the poll. But maybe there's enough people out there who are really like, you know what? I appreciate that she's still not backing down from this, because the truth is the truth, regardless of how you perceive it or whatever. Like, biology is biology. But in some cases, like Jeopardy, for example, they have a new champion for female earners. And so Jeopardy champion Amy Schneider made history again on Friday, becoming the highest earning female contestant in the game show's nearly 57-year run. Oh, that sounds exciting, guys. The engineering manager's 18th consecutive win brought her total earnings to $706,800, bumping her above Larissa Kelly to become the show's top earning female player. Kelly, a science fiction writer and academic who built up a record of $655,930 through regular season play and tournament competitions, applauded Schneider's historic win on Twitter. Now, that lady is crazy. The person who applauded the Amy, because Amy's gonna be on one side, and Kelly's gonna and Larissa's gonna be on the other. Okay. So the one with the darker hair was the former top female earner, and the other person, who I think you guys can tell is a bio male, just beat her record. So so we're talking about a game show in which your knowledge is tested. That should just be about a pursuit of truth. And now they have a man who has gender dysphoria, who is now being hailed as a top female earner ever within like the 57-year run. That's crazy. And Larissa Kelly was gracious enough to, I guess, she said, well, it's fun to hold a Jeopardy record for a few years, but it's been even more fun to watch Jeopardy Amy set new standards for excellence on the show and off. Congratulations to Amy on becoming the woman with the highest overall earnings in the show's history. And Amy responded, thanks so much. I'm honored to be in your company, and I look forward to someday watching the woman who beats us both. Well, Amy and Larissa can both play along if they want, but this is crazy. You can identify however you want to identify, but for people to be just beating people's records and people's, as soon as Bruce Jenner transitioned, immediately won Woman of the Year award. That was a big conversation. Very controversial. We have right now a Penn State swimmer who's beating all the women's records. He was in a race with women and beat them by 40 seconds. 40 whole seconds. Like, when you do it like 14 seconds or something, that's pretty fast in a race. But you're talking about like 40 whole seconds that you just dominated everyone's competition. 40 whole seconds. And they're just going to allow them to blow all these women's records just out of the water. And there's girls who have cried. The schools are saying, please don't say much about it. But if other people don't come up and say, this isn't fair, that they have even if you take hormones and your testosterone levels aren't obviously where they are for like normal men, there's different aspects of your body that have been changed over time from you just grow. He competed as a male for 3 years, and there's nothing stopping you from continuously competing with the males. If you want to call yourself a woman, you can call yourself a woman, but there's no reason why you have to jump in and compete with the girls. And if we're not going to respect the differences between the male and the female and the advantages that men have in sports compared to women, then let's just get rid of all of it and then men will just dominate women's sports and they'll never have any titles or records ever again. If that's what they want to do. So that's quite a thing that Jeopardy has done. Very, very woke. Very, very delusional as well. But it is what it is. But I'm glad at least J.K. Rowling is the unofficial winner of Person of the Year, because at least she won't back down from the biological realities of men and women. Someone the other day left a comment on my page. I have to respond it, and this is on TikTok. And we're going back and forth about abortion. And she keeps saying, I think this person maybe identifies as non-binary, I'm not sure. But they keep saying birthing person. Of course, only women can have babies. And there's some people on that app who say that men can have periods. So the issue when you start dealing with things that are biological, because you say that it's about how you identify, right? But when you can't identify your way into a period, you can't identify your way into a pregnancy. It is what it is. So this need to intertwine the two, I think you're pretty much acknowledging that there's a special relationship between sex and gender. Now there's a relationship, they're two different things. They have two different meanings, but even within the meanings, they do acknowledge they're intertwined. But I would say that they're meaningless without each other. So you can't, and people say it's a social construct. Well, society has deemed that there's two genders and they're not interchangeable, but there's enough people who are trying to silence everyone else into just accepting something that we know is not true. So HBO, yeah, so birthing person. Yeah, they said birthing person. I am not kidding. I'm not kidding. But you know what? They've said that in Congress. That Cori Bush said that. Cori Bush was testifying about I mean, she might have been talking about, was she talking about abortion and how women need abortion? It might not have been that topic, but she was in Congress testifying and she said birthing person. This is someone who's like had kids and is a woman entertaining the birthing person thing because that's just a woke thing to do. That is a woke thing to do. So this is doing no favors to women as they lose their titleships. Yeah, it was okay. Michelle Martin pointed out she was talking about abortion and maternal health care. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and they said the birthing person. She's not the only one. People were saying that even on the debate stage with the Democrat primary, some of the more obscure characters. Governor Whitmer, she said people with periods when she was talking about when she repealed the pink tax, which is just like getting rid of 6% sales tax on like tampons and so on, which isn't really a big deal. I would rather them do something about the gas tax or something like that. I mean, because women only buy period products once a month. and disposable ones are really luxury items too. I mean, I did a video about it and some people were like, I use cloth ones or I use, cups or whatever. And I'm like, I guess I knew cloth ones were a thing. I did not really know too much about the cups. I'm like, this is interesting. I'm still going to buy disposable things, but I'm not complaining about my 6% sales tax on tampons or whatnot. So, but anyway, she said people who with periods because she just couldn't say women. And actually, Ryan Kelly, who's running for governor, he did a pretty viral TikTok replying because like, come on, Gretchen, they're women. I did an article about it on blacktnews.com. If you haven't seen it, you can go check that out. But yeah, it was pretty bizarre that people can't just be honest about sex and gender and biology. But J.K. Rowling, they just did a Harry Potter special that they're going to play on HBO, and she's not a part of it. They're going to play I think they're going to play like old clips of her, but they didn't want her to be a part of their special as they kind of reflect on it. They have so a lot of the actors who played in the original films, but they're not going to include the person who actually created the book, which is really bizarre, which is really obscure. But she's had some bad press and because of this issue, because of something that most people agree with but are too afraid to speak about. And she has a lot of money, she has a lot of status, so can you really cancel her in the sense that it's going to ruin her like cancellation can ruin other people? Probably not. People bought her books, people made her movies, people are still making entertainment with her stuff that she's still getting royalties off of. But you could also argue that she has no reason to be in the fight at all and to defend other women and other people when they say, hey, I don't want to call my rapist a woman. or I believe that men are men and women are women. So she doesn't have much to gain from it. So I do appreciate the fact that she is not backing down. And I appreciate other people who are not backing down from that either. So again, maybe right wing trolls got a hold of that poll and just spammed it, and that's why she started to win that poll. But maybe there's enough people who are brave enough to click on her name. But and maybe they're not brave enough yet to say something in person. But people need to get there. I want to mention someone commented on one of my TikTok videos, and they thought I shouldn't call myself Black Tea News because I guess because they said spill the tea, sip the tea, or whatever is a gay slang term. And so I didn't really know what they were talking about. So I looked it up. And so apparently spill the tea or what's the tea first, and this is as far back as I could find it. I'm not 100% sure, but as far as back as I can find it, the slang starts from some kind of book in 1994, and it was like a drag character who said something like "spill the tea," and "spill the tea" is like what's tell the truth or whatever. But but instead of using the letter T, people just kind of evolved it into the how you spell the drink tea. And so I guess I had that in mind a little. I did have it in mind. I mean, because that is like a lingo that people have. People have been saying it for a long time, for decades. And it's a very popular saying now. My sisters say that quite a bit. But I also mentioned, I'm like, do you know who else spilled the tea? And I showed a picture of the Boston Tea Party. And I'm like, I started Black Tea, or the purpose of it is me talking about commentary on the news, on politics, on culture. And it's from my perspective. I'm not pretending, that I'm being down the middle or something. I'm telling my perspective, my thoughts from a Black conservative. And I don't shy from the fact that I'm Black. And even if I never mentioned it, people on the left would mention it. So I might as well mention it because they don't like that I say what I say anyway, and they're personally offended because a Black woman is against them, or not so much against them, just I don't toe the line of what I'm allowed to think. And I don't care what they think I'm allowed to think. They're just my thoughts. So I go ahead and just put it out there, Black conservative. But my goal is to break through the system, to encourage other people to break through the system. I've often talked about how the left has such a monopoly on entertainment, on Hollywood, the cartoons you watch, TV shows you watch. It's infected comic books. It's infected literature a lot. It's just pretty much everywhere. And also we know the mainstream media. And I said, even if Republicans put in every sort of measure to make sure our elections are airtight, if we don't do something to break through this monopoly that people have and all this information that we consume and entertainment we consume, we won't win elections because it's so one-sided. So my goal is to, of course, have me be the voice that breaks through some, but also inspire other people. People come up to me and say, well, I could never say what you say, or I could never, and I'll have white people say, I can never say what you say because people will say things about me and call me racist, all kind of other stuff. And I'll look them dead in their eye and say, but they call me a coon. And it'll get a little awkward. It's like, so if they're talking about me, they'll talk about you, but they talk about me. And I don't mind being that person who's taking the sling and the arrows for a little while. But the more that we wake up and say, hey, we're not alone. I said this in the video. I said, it doesn't, what's the point of being the silent majority if we're going to silently be led to our doom? So if people don't stand up and start just speaking up for common sense or just basic truths, it's not going to matter. So my goal is to break through the system. So of course, the Boston Tea Party, like I said, they spilled the tea, and that started, an escalation that eventually led to the Revolutionary War. So I don't want to go quietly into the night. I want to make some noise if I have to. So I want us all to spill the tea together. So I hope that was a good enough explanation for them. But her screen name was like Whiteness 466 or something like that. And so I said, oh, so she said she didn't appreciate me having the name Black Tea News. And I said, well, I don't appreciate when, white lefties come in trying to control what I think as a Black American free woman. And then I went to my explanation. So I do what I do because I think it's important. And 62% of Americans are afraid to voice their real opinions. I am not one of those people. I'm not one of those people. I don't mind giving my 2 cents. I don't mind having conversations. I don't mind learning. I don't, I try to be careful because I don't want to be wrong. But I can admit when I'm wrong, and I want to learn. So other people are really afraid to speak out, and to the point where they will let other people bully them into an opinion that's not even theirs. So if we can all stand up together, we can fight back against the system and be informed. And it's okay if people get emotional. I don't mind people being emotional. I think we should be emotional about some things, but the other side of the aisle wants people to be emotionally charged instead of factually informed. And it's okay if you're emotional, but I want us to be both. I think we should be passionate about a lot of things, but I also want us to be informed. So that's my goal here. And I hope every day when you guys log on and you watch the show that you are entertained, that you are informed, and that we have interesting conversations. But that's why I have black tea. That's why I do what I do. Someone said you love black tea. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you guys watching. I appreciate everyone who supports. I appreciate people who share. Even when you share like a meme or something that I share on my page, and that gets impressions, and other people might see it and they may like it, and I can go and invite them to like the page, or you guys can invite other people to like the page if you would like, or you can recommend it. All those things help. All those things help when you watch live or when you watch the playback. All those things help. And I appreciate people who go the extra mile and give something. But every little thing that you guys do, you guys are rock stars, and I appreciate it. And there's a lot of channels that I watch that I've watched them grow, and I'm seeing them expand a lot. People like, the Blaze and Daily Wire, and there's a channel I follow, Nerdrotics, Young Ripa hit. I've seen a lot of people have a lot of growth, and they're expanding, and they're fighting for balance and liberty and freedoms, and to have honest conversations. And I want to be among people like that who are expanding as well. And so we're kind of like on the ground floor expanding, and we've had a lot of growth in the past year. And I do really appreciate you guys so much, and I really enjoy what I do. I like what I do. And this is something I want to be very long term, and something that is very substantial. So I hope it's substantial in your guys' lives, and I appreciate you. I do also want to mention that in New York, the incoming mayor said that they plan to keep lockdowns, I guess, not lockdowns, but the COVID measures in place for people having to show like the vaccine passports and get vaccinated and so on. So I don't think that's why people necessarily pick this guy. And there's a lot of people in New York who have fought back, people showing up at Burger Kings and whatnot, getting arrested, or people trying to protest. There's been like people out protesting in New York in droves. The media doesn't cover it so much. If you're on social media, maybe you've seen like clips, in cell phone videos of people doing protests. Black Lives Matter have spoken up against the lockdowns, which I'm like, well, at least they're doing something right. But they keep pressing, they keep pushing. But it is interesting though that in New York they're having discussions about New Year's when they drop the ball. It's always a big deal in New York when they bring in the New Year. But they plan to still have an event like that. Well, they still want to make sure that people get they're vaccinated, even though they know people can actually still be vaccinated and spread COVID. So if they're concerned about the cases, which at this point of time, people do really need to start living their life. We've been at that point, but I think some more people are starting to wake up to maybe we should find a way to live through it. And and Omicron is a variant, of course, that is it's spreading a lot, sure, but it's not as bad as like Delta or the original strain that went around. So if you're going to get COVID, this is like the time to do it, I think. But the vaccines aren't stopping it, but they're still going to do the ball drop. And so de Blasio defended it. But I think it's pretty interesting that there's just really not a good consistency with these people.
Given that New York is yet again the epicenter, given that some local officials are calling for you to cancel the in-person event altogether, why not scale back that event even further?
Look, I don't believe in shutdowns. We have to fight our way through COVID, and the way to do it is vaccination. We have the strongest vaccine mandates in the country, and now 91% of all New York City adults have had at least one dose of the vaccine. So shutdowns are not the answer. The answer is get people vaccinated. This event is vaccination only. Everyone is it's going to be outdoors, vaccination only, masks required, socially distanced. But we want to show that we're moving forward, and we want to show the world that New York City is fighting our way through this. It's really important to not give up in the face of this.
Okay. A lot of people are still going to be wearing cloth masks, and they've started like admitting that they don't work. We've known that for a while. You and I, we've known that for a while, but they don't work. So a lot of people, they may show up and masks may be required, but the masks that they're using also aren't going to stop the spread. Okay. So there's that. I don't believe people will really be social distancing when they go out and do the ball drop thing. They may try it a little bit, but people are kind of over that too, I think. I don't know. I haven't been to New York in a hot minute. But that's just kind of my assumption. And when people go out and do what they want to do, they are astronomically less afraid. Yesterday we talked about when people were very mad at people who would go out and protest against the lockdowns, but then they went out and they protested for BLM, and so people would march in the streets and whatnot. And yeah, people were wearing masks. In some cases, when that was very good for them, because when they start looting, their faces were covered. But people were going out and protesting, and a lot of them didn't really care about social distancing and all the other kind of stuff. And then when Biden was announced like the winner with the election, I guess people were celebrating when it happened, and when like all the court stuff, fell through. People were celebrating everywhere. People in Detroit, people in Chicago, people in New York, and people didn't really care about social distancing anymore. Okay. So, I don't believe that people are going to be really social distanced at the ball drop, and maybe they will be. But if they really feel strongly about Omicron, they just shouldn't have it. But of course, it's a big tradition. There's probably a lot of money in it, tourist attraction, all that kind of stuff. So why would you want to cancel it? I understand that. And you wouldn't want to, but if your real concern is COVID and the spread, this is something that isn't absolutely necessary, and you could cancel it. If you want to talk about essential, during the pandemic, we talked about what's essential or not, all these sports teams and stuff that are forcing their players to get vaccinated and stuff, or imposing those mandates. Sports, if you really feel that bad, that strongly about it, then you should just not have sports right now. Now, I think people need to get back to normal life, but if you feel that strongly about it, you can still catch it. You can still spread it. So at the end of the day, your job is not that important. It is not an essential job. So if you feel that strong about it, but you still go out there on your play and you rub up against other men as you wrestle like for a football, right? Or try to get a basketball. They don't mask like kids are forced to do in high schools, which that's dumb anyway. So a lot of these things just don't make sense. It makes sense to get back to normal life. It does. But this video is going to live with me for a while. He mentioned that like 91% of New Yorkers have had at least one kind of shot. Well, that's because of force, and they're very, very proud of the way that they bullied you into getting it.
People want to lead their lives. I mean, the hard thing, and, I feel it here in New York City. Yeah. By the way, I'm from Philadelphia, so it's not like I live in a rural area. But I feel it in every block that I walk in New York City. But if I were in the middle part of the country with you, I don't think we'd see masks. I don't think we'd be showing our vax cards anywhere. So I come back to that point where unless everybody's on the same page in the country, we're kind of screwed.
And you know how you get on the same page? People have to lead. So look, I believe with enough leadership, enough mandates, we're going to get a hell of a lot more people vaccinated. The more people vaccinated, the more we actually make the transition to a time when COVID is in the background, not the foreground. And we know these mandates work, and we know people respond. Look, human beings are pretty predictable. If you say your paycheck depends on it, or your ability to enjoy life and go do the things you want to do, people will make the practical decision overwhelmingly, and they'll go get vaccinated. But we aren't pushing hard enough. We got to go farther.
Is that so? We just have to make them do it. If they know if they need a job, they got to get vaxxed. We got to break their legs. They'll comply if we break their legs. And it's amazing to hear people talk like this. If it's what I've heard from a lot of people. Now, people have a healthy distrust of government, but people who like for real don't trust it, it's because of stuff like that. It's because of stuff like that. Where they're just making you do it. And at the end of the day, it's people's own choice. Because again, you can catch it, you can still spread it. You can still catch it and you can still spread it. So if you decide to take it or not, that is a decision that is for you. That is a decision that is for you. A lot of people have these huge savior complexes, and maybe tyrannical de Blasio has decided in his mind, he's warped his mind to believe I am doing this for the good of the people. Maybe he's warped his mind so much. Maybe it's just a payout or something like that. I don't know. But maybe they've warped their mind to just believe that they're doing it for the benefit of people. But you're willing to throw people out on the streets essentially because they're not going to have a job if they don't comply. But he said people are predictable. People are very predictable. So if they need to make a paycheck, we'll just say that they can't have one unless they get the mandated vaccine. Knowing good and well, here's what's crazy. You should not allow people to make you do this unless they are willing to take up the liability for it. If you take a vaccine, you have harm from the vaccine, you cannot sue the pharmaceutical companies. I'm pretty sure that the city of New York is not taking up the bill if something goes wrong with you. And I'm pretty sure employer is not taking up the bill if something goes wrong like that. And I've seen people try to say, I will not take it unless, talking to their employer, I will not take it unless you sign something that says if something happens to me that you will take the liability for it. They're not going to take that deal. And they don't have to. At least they don't feel ethically like they have to. I think ethically they should. But what do they care about ethics? There's nothing ethical about this. But they say, hey, you had a choice after we broke your legs and took away your livelihood. So it's not, we didn't coerce you into it. It's still informed consent. Because you consented after we made you do it. I did a live yesterday on TikTok and people were so upset in the comments talking about how their job made them do it and they were so upset. And there's some people who've gotten it and they've had no side effects. That's great. Of course, there's been some people who've gotten it, and there was a heartbreaking video I played one time on my show of a father who lost their son, and he said he thought he was doing something good for him, and now he doesn't have a son anymore. And it wasn't worth it in the end for him. But of course, we know most people, there's people who've had adverse reactions and it sucks and they get over it and they're fine. But most people have had COVID and had absolutely no symptoms at all. They were just asymptomatic and it was what it was. So someone asked me how I felt about it. And I'm not necessarily afraid or anything of the vaccine. I think it's important that people know that there are associated risks with it and you have to make a good choice that's good for you. But even if something might possibly be a good choice for them, you have to respect that people want to assume the risk. It would be one thing if the vaccines were like, oh, it's just going to stop in the tracks. Nobody's going to get it anymore. It's not going to spread anymore. We can't share it or whatever after you've had it. But we're not at that point, really. Rand Paul made the point, like, at this point, why aren't they pushing for a new, more effective vaccine? Why are they still pushing people to get the same one that is flawed with these other variants? Interesting question. I'm not sure what the answer is. Not sure what the answer is. I'm not sure. I don't know if they have to make sure a certain amount gets pushed out or what. Last thing I want to mention briefly is that The View has been looking for someone to replace Meghan McCain after she left. When she left, we did talk about it on the show. She left after she had her baby. She was depressed a little bit and had it seemed like a little bit out of whack. And when she finally came back, Joy was like, I didn't miss you at all, 0. And she took it really hard. And she was also a little paranoid and stuff. So with all that combined and just the toxic nature of The View, she just decided to leave. And at times she was conflicted because she's obviously Republican, but she's, not a Trumper. She hates the guy, which given his history with her dad is understandable. A lot of people don't like Meghan, and I get that. But I also understand her dislike of Trump. Let's remember that he had beef with her dad. Okay, so give her a little leeway on that. But there's things with Meghan McCain I've obviously disagreed with, and talked about, and tweeted at her. But she left The View, and they're looking for a conservative person to replace her. And they said that they're having trouble finding someone who fits the bill and as at the same time not a I think insurrectionist apologist was what the article I read the headline said or something like that. I'm like, there should be a lot of people who actually fit that, but they're just delusional on The View. And so one person they did talk to was Lisa Booth, who's on Fox News apparently, but they have a very strict COVID policy at ABC, and she wasn't going to budge on that, so that I don't think the negotiations got terribly far with that. Jedediah Bila was like the conservative voice for a minute, but she was interviewed doing like an off location thing, and I did play it for you guys on the show, but then they marked me with a like a copyright strike or something, and I'm like, it's free use, guys, come on, you don't have to be so silly. But she explained why she wasn't going to be vaccinated. And so she had COVID. I believe she had COVID, but her doctors told her, yeah, I believe she had the antibodies. And she said that what's in the vaccine, she would have had a bad reaction to or whatever. So her doctors advised her not to get it. So she explained it right to the ladies of View, Joy and Sunny and so on. And they just could not receive the information. It would not download in their brains. And it essentially became but all these people have died. And I can't believe that you would be so selfish and not take it yourself. This is crazy. And you're spreading misinformation. And I'm like, how can a woman tell you, look, what's in the vaccine? I'm not a candidate for this. This will not be good for me if I take it. And their position is essentially, yeah, but why won't you die for me? You're so selfish. Why won't you die for me? So she didn't give a I just don't want it excuse, and that as an American, that should be good enough, right? But that wasn't her reason. Her reason is she has the antibodies. The vaccine would be from what they could test would be harmful for her, and she's not a candidate for it, but they did not care. And ABC does not care. It doesn't make sense for the mandates to be upset and want you to really, really take the vaccine, but not take into account whether someone has the antibodies and T cells and B cells or whatever. It doesn't make any sense. So there's no consideration for that. Other countries consider the science. Other countries follow the science. But when we say follow the science here in America, it's a darn religion. It's a darn religion. They just it's another thing to beat you over the head with until you comply. Like de Blasio said, people are predictable and they know how to make you do what they want you to do. I'm not totally surprised that we've reacted the way that we've reacted to this, but I thought America wouldn't be so far gone with some of this stuff. It's amazing how far we've gone with and how many excuses people will make. Like people have said to me, yeah, but the vaccines, they're not meant to make you immune, and they're not. I'm like, I've had vaccines and haven't had to have boosters. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I understand they're changing the definitions and you're responding differently now because they told you different things. But when they first pitched to you the vaccines, did Joe Biden not tell everyone that they wouldn't get sick? Because that's absolutely what he told people. Now, maybe he shouldn't have said it, but that was the pitch that people had. Get the vaccine and you will not, and we can end this pandemic. He also said 100 days of masking and stuff too. So that's what was pitched to people. And when those things aren't true, they make an adjustment and people pretend like the other thing just didn't happen at all. It's really amazing. And it's really amazing to me how many people have decided to just lay down their freedoms, lay down their liberties, and just let it go. I couldn't believe how many conversations I got into with people about people not going to church. Like, well, you can just do it at home. Like, I shouldn't just have to do it at home. And then what happens? I knew of some preachers who lost their accounts from Facebook so they couldn't stream anymore on those platforms. I was like, well, you can find a different platform. But how many times are we going to have to just find something else? When you had something, they had their church building, and you're telling them that they can't gather in there, and then you're going to kick them out for one platform after another. It's just about compliance. As Joe Biden said, it's not about your liberty. It should be about your liberty, but they just don't care about it. They just don't care about it. We are almost up on the end of the year, guys, with our wackadoodle president, with our wackadoodle administration, still pushing their wackadoodle policies. It's been a heck of a year. It's been a heck of a year. And we still got 3 more. Dear Lord. Will he last them all? We shall see. But that is the end of the broadcast today. I thank you guys for tuning in. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content that I have on the website. And please consider looking at some of the merchandise that we have on the website that you can buy, like the My Money, My Business shirts. I got the pumpkin spice season mugs and different shirts. You are not that special. Got those in mugs, and also black tea mugs. Someone said that I should have a saucer and a plate, and I will look into that. I would love to have some more stuff like that, but I'm working on it. But you guys can check out the store. If you enjoy what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. Appreciate all that you guys do. Please follow me across my different social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. All my handles are at Black Tea News, and the only one that's different is Twitter, and that one's at True Black Tea. And if you don't know where to find all those things, you can go to blacktnews.com and you can find out where all my socials are on the website. We'll be broadcasting tomorrow too, on New Year's Eve. Now, in case anyone has any, I don't know what you guys always do for New Year's Eve, but my church has always had a watch night service. And so I live in Michigan. And if anyone would like to come, you're more than welcome to join me at my church at 9:00 for our watch night service, ringing in the new year. So that's what I'll be doing. It's in Rochester Hills. So that's the address, 3555 West Auburn Road. And it's going to be starting at 9:00. So if you're interested, I'll put out like a post on social media. So if you guys are interested, if you're close, or if you just want to drive, we're going to have a good time. My brother is a pastor. He'll be preaching. And I'll have some words exhorting and stuff. And also we sing, I'm part of the praise team. We will sing some good music that night. We sing good music all the time. But we're going to have a good time. So if you are in the area, you are more than welcome to join us. Nick said it sounds like a good time. It is a good time. We always have a good time, but we're very excited this year because we just feel it's going to be a really great service, bringing into a prosperous new year and blessed new year of favor and abundance for everyone. I pray that on your life. So you guys, if you want to come, you're more than welcome to join us on New Year's. And I will not have a Saturday broadcast at 7:30 like I normally do, but I will resume on the 8th. And I already have a guest lined up. I will wait till I have my ad out for him. I'm going to probably talk to him after I get off the air, but we're going to have a good time. So on Saturdays, I normally invite someone, normally from TikTok, to discuss different crazy kind of videos together. And so usually it's hour minimal, but it has gone longer, maybe 2.5 hours. Sometimes we just kind of let the conversation go where it goes. But that will start back on the 8th. So, but I do plan to, we're going to stream next week, all week. So I just took the week off for Christmas. And it was a good week. So I appreciate you guys being patient and enjoying your holidays as I enjoyed mine. But God bless you guys, and I will see you tomorrow for the last day of the year.